Wake up with the sunrise, meditate to clear my mind. Thank you for this breath, I'm ready to be surprised. Don't know where I'm going. Hello and welcome to this healing session. I am your host and fearless guide, Rachel Robinson, victim rights attorney, as many of you know me as. I'm also a poet, an international best-selling author, a gardener, of course, and so many other things. But today I am hosting this healing session because, as many of you know, one of the mottos that I have when it comes to really advocating for victims of crime and just really in general our health, like we need to be healthy. And if our minds and souls and spirits are not healed, then there really can be no justice in life and you can't reach your full potential. So today I'm really excited to host Lisa Scruggs. She's going to be our expert today, talking about different forms of resiliency and healing in the therapeutic space. So she is a licensed professional counselor in Colorado, specializes in particular helping women heal from trauma of relationship betrayal due to, for example, affairs, pornography, or any other types of sex addiction that their spouses may be exposing them to. She's trained in eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which many of us may have heard colloquially be called EMDR. And she also has CBT and is solution focused when addressing these traumas and different healing modalities. So this is not a situation where you just talk and unload and then the session's over, you're just left with your own thoughts. She actually guides you through the healing process and pinpoints things and helps you grow and understand your triggers and how to address them. She has experience, obviously, like I said, in relationship trauma, and definitely understands and empathizes with how traumatizing different types of relationships with spouses and the endings of those relationships can be. She indeed actually is divorced with her own 2 grown children. They are, I'm sure she's very proud, finishing their degrees at CSU and CU and pursuing their own dreams. And so she also has her own master's degree in counseling from Colorado Christian University. And she also has a master's degree in biblical studies at the Moody Bible Institute. And she also has a bachelor's degree in business management from the University of Toledo in Ohio. Ohio was where I grew up, so that has a soft place in my heart. She's just well-rounded, and I'm really excited to bring her on. She does have an office here in Colorado, but offers her services virtually, and so it's very accessible to anyone who'd want to follow up after this. So thank you so much for being here, Lisa. Did I miss anything?
No, just the only thing is my kids have finished their degrees already, so they are moving on after college. But yeah, everything else is great.
Amazing. So tell us about, how did you get started into therapy? What made you want to serve the community in this way and serve women in this way?
Well, that's a great question. And it's a little bit of a complicated answer, but I knew back in my bachelor degree days that I was interested in working with people. And I was looking at social work at the time. And I had a father who said he will pay for my college if I get a business degree. So I get a business degree. But I did a lot of volunteering and a lot of working outside of the professional environment, doing crisis intervention counseling in middle schools, doing adventure counseling, high ropes courses, that kind of thing, just for fun and just to see the difference that it makes in people's lives. And so as I moved forward, came to Colorado, had my kids, and then worked on my master's in counseling. And so I am in this field because of personal experience here. And so I know how painful it can be. And I want to be able to help other women to understand what's going on, what happened in their life, and how to move through it.
How much are you willing to share about your own personal experience regarding your own divorce and all these things? Were you a therapist when that happened? Did it really help you? Were you equipped with the tools to deal with it? What were the biggest tools that you needed? How can we relate to that?
I had not yet become a therapist. So I had done some of that work with kids in middle school at the beginning of our marriage. And that was all very informal. But 13 years into my marriage, I found out that my husband had betrayed me. And so we ended up in Dr. Doug Weiss's office, and he is a psychologist who is an expert in sex addiction and pornography addiction and partner betrayal trauma, as well as an emotional avoidance that he has termed as intimacy anorexia. So ended up in his office, found out a lot of things I didn't know and didn't know what to do with that. So through his program and through his 30 years of experience, he guided us through recovery. And the recovery was great for about 5 years or so. But then 28 years into the marriage, I found out again that my husband had betrayed the marriage. And at this point, I said that's all I'm willing to take. And I filed for divorce. So don't know if he's doing recovery on his own. I hope he does, but I'm doing my own healing, my own recovery. So I contacted Dr. Weiss, who had been a great friend to me for all the years. And at that point, I had finished my master's in counseling, had been doing other work, mental health evaluations in probation and immigration and Department of Social Services and parental rights cases for about 8 years. And when I contacted him, I asked him if I could come on with his counseling center. And he said, absolutely. And gave me a lot of training and guidance and certification through ASAT, which is the American Association of Sex Addiction Therapy. And so now I've been working for almost a year with other women that have gone through crazily similar circumstances in their relationships. And it's pretty amazing.
That is amazing. And I can relate so much. Having my own history of trauma and victimization, and one of the most healing things we can do is pick up the tools that helps us get through it and then offer it back to our community in a way that's really easy to resonate with and that they understand because we've been there. So that is amazing. And thank you for choosing to go that route and not giving up.
Yeah. I just really felt it on my heart and felt like God was calling me to do this. And I've made some amazing connections with women and seen some beautiful, beautiful reconciliations of marriages and seeing women stepping into their own and healing and learning about themselves in a way they hadn't before. And that's wonderful.
And that's amazing time. Let's talk about some of the techniques and the methodologies that you use to help them step into their own or reconcile if that's appropriate in certain situations. Yeah, explain us, like what's EMDR and CBT? What are these big fancy acronyms?
So what we primarily work with is a lot of the partner betrayal trauma curriculum. And this is developed by Dr. Weiss. So basically, we use the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step model that has been changed to a certain and just kind of molded so it can work with the partners of betrayal. And it's got just all the very basic movement forward in healing. And so, what we do is like, of course, at first you evaluate the safety and stabilization of the partners and what are their needs and what are their goals and what has happened to them. And then we put together a methodology and we use the format that's been put before us. And then we kind of, mold it to each person's needs. And some people have more of a need for working on attachment issues, and some people have more of a need for, working on trauma issues. And so it really depends on them and what their needs are. But we'll put them in groups. We'll get them connected to other women that are going through similar situations. And the sisterhood that forms out of that is really beautiful because they lift each other up and they hold each other accountable and they validate each other and encourage each other and pray for each other. And so we see some really, really cool things happening in the group environment. And as they move through their own healing, they become stronger and they start looking more at their self and what they need in their certain situation. So when they get their eyes off of the partner in the marriage and they start thinking, okay, well, this is what I need. Yes, I've been hurt. And yes, maybe I'm laying in a pool of my emotional blood, but I need to get up and I need to take care of myself and I need to heal. And in the healing comes the strengthening and the moving forward.
Amazing. I love that. Forming communities is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens a lot of times is we get into the relationships and like our all goes into just the relationships, just the children, and then we forget ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
we forget ourselves. And so it's just a great reminder to have that community of other women who are refinding themselves or maybe finding themselves for the first time. I mean, sometimes these are the events that really force us to find our voice and choose our identity and choose the life we want going forward. And that can be some of the beauty that comes out of it. And I'm happy to hear that you're helping women, go through that and find that for themselves. It's amazing.
Absolutely, Rachel. That is a really good point you bring up, is that some of these women don't know that they need to work on themselves. And the betrayal oftentimes brings up this situation that has to be addressed, right? And it's hurtful and it's painful. And you start doing a lot of evaluating of yourself. And at first they might go to the, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? How have I fallen short? Did I mess up? Am I not good enough? Am I not worthy of a good relationship? Am I not lovable? Ooh, those are some painful things that we do here. And those things aren't true, obviously. And then they come out of some wounds, maybe from childhood, maybe from the relationship they were betrayed from. And so it ends up being a good time to look at yourself and start healing those wounds. So whether you stay in this relationship or if you move on out of the relationship and possibly into another one in the future, you can be healed and whole. And I think that is really the aim here.
Definitely the aim. And so in addition to the groups and just general therapies, what's an exercise that a woman could do on her own? Like if she's dealing with a high stress situation, what can she do for herself in that moment? Obviously call you, but aside from that.
So self-emotional regulation is really important, okay? And that basically just means to be able to calm yourself down and to be able to keep your head about you and not panic and think through what's going on. So you want to be able to regulate your own emotions, because oftentimes when you go through a trauma, you can have periods where you're flooded with emotion, and people call it being triggered, being overwhelmed. Then you kind of lose your head a little bit as to, what do I do? How do I get through this? And sometimes there's panic attacks, your heart's racing, you're having a hard time breathing, you're breathing shallow, and you get in your head, right? And you're just worrying and anxiety. So a great first thing to do is to get your breathing under control. So some breathing methods, there's a lot of different ones, but one I use with my partners is that you breathe in for 4 seconds. So a count of 4 in, and then you hold for a count of 7.
Okay, let's do it. I'm going to do it. You count for me.
Okay, ready? So inhale, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that is something you'll do 3 times in a row. And as you do that, you'll notice the heart rate slowing down. You're getting more oxygen. The holding the breath makes you slow down the breathing. So it's not shallow, and it is just bringing you back to being into a calm state.
Well, I'm feeling calmer already. I get nervous before these things. I'm very excited to have you on. But yeah, you literally can feel the pulse subside a bit. It goes down a bit. It almost gives a little bit of a buzz, like a little. I mean, you just
That's
feel
the oxygen.
and it's just oxygen. I mean, it's crazy. It's just like lets you feel. I feel a little lighter. I feel just more relaxed and centered.
Mm-hmm. And you can also do some things like take a time out, right? Like maybe the kids are making you a little bit anxious or upset, or they're fighting and throwing things, and you're ready to like scream, taking a time out, go to the other room. If you're at work and somebody did something that set you off, triggered you, you can go to the bathroom, go to, down to the where you can eat, or anywhere where you can be alone and do your breathing. Walking around is always good because you got that bilateral stimulation going on. So that's just the left, right, and walking does that. And it helps to get your mind to just process and calm yourself down.
Oh, and then as you mentioned the left, right, I remember one of our earlier conversations as we were getting to know each other. You talked about how EMDR has something to do with this right, left, right, left. Is it the breathing too, or can we explain a bit of what EMDR is? So if people think it's appropriate for them, they understand it and can maybe seek out help and guidance from you on that?
Yes. So eye movement desensitization and then reprocessing is a very popular form of treatment for trauma. So now it may not be appropriate for everybody. And I usually do several sessions in before I determine if that person is a good candidate for EMDR. Usually I like to get them to do some work first, make some progress forward, and then we dig down, we find really stuck kind of negative cognitions, negative beliefs about yourself, negative beliefs about your value. And then those things, when we go through a trauma of some sort, we have like the limbic system is then controlled by the right side of your brain. So that's your emotion. And that's your fight, your flight, your flee. That's what happens when you're faced with something that is scary and you think you're in danger somehow. So that's your body's way of protecting itself. Now, normally you process it out of that side of the brain into the linguistic side on the left, the side that processes stuff, makes sense of stuff, is kind of like the calmer side. And then that says, hey, you know what? You're not in danger anymore. You're safe now. And so you can relax. But sometimes it gets stuck. And so EMDR helps to move that into the reprocessing part. So back and forth. So, and I think I explained this a little bit to you before, but like when you go to sleep, like maybe something happened that upset you during the day and somebody says, hey, why don't you just sleep on it? You're going to feel better in the morning. And you sleep on it, you wake up and you're like, oh, sure enough, I do feel better, right?
Right.
So your brain is able to process it overnight. And the REM that happens while you're sleeping, there's the eyes moving back and forth. And so that's your brain processing what goes on each day. And so that's basically what the founders of EMDR realized, that we can help the brain process when it gets stuck by helping with this bilateral stimulation. And it started with just the eye movement, moving the eyes manually back and forth, follow my fingers kind of a thing. And then we realized that tones, we have like headphones that will do alternating tones, buzzers that will alternate in your hands. And then even like virtually, I'll have people do the butterfly hug like this, and I will guide them through the EMDR that way. And all of those forms tend to be very effective. And I mean, some people probably it wouldn't, like if they had eye issues or whatever, they couldn't use the eye, or if they had hearing problems, the tone. So you have to evaluate each method for each person.
Amazing. Thank you for that thorough explanation. That makes a lot of sense. What's CBT? We mentioned that in the intro. I know you've talked about that before. What does that stand for?
So CBT is really the most common form of a therapeutic technique. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. And in CBT, it's basically recognizing that your thoughts, your emotions, and your physical movements are all connected. And I throw in there spiritual too, because I believe that your body, your spirit, everything is interactive and interconnected. And
Agreed.
yeah, right. And so basically, if somebody's feeling depressed, maybe they're sad, you can't say, well, stop feeling sad, get over it. Because you can't, right? You're
It's also not very trauma informed. Okay. That's the last thing you say to someone who's
exactly. So anyhow, basically, so to address the sadness, you work on the cognitive, you work on the behavioral, you work on the spiritual. So what negative things are they saying to themselves in their head? The messages that they keep giving themselves. What are they doing? Are they sitting around at home feeling sad, watching, TV and sad movies all day? And are they, connecting with their spiritual side? So, if you have faith, you start opening your Bible or, whatever book you are using, that is your spiritual side. And then you get yourself involved in that. So behavioral, go out and talk to people, get a job if you don't have a job, find a hobby, go for a walk, learn an instrument, go exercise, get your nails done, your hair done. So different self-care things that can be physical. And then your thoughts, you start reworking what you're telling yourself. You might need to write Bible verses on the mirror in your bathroom. You might need to put inspirational quotations on your refrigerator. So that is a message you're telling yourself every day. So every day you walk to the refrigerator and it says, hey, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are valuable. You say that to yourself every single day. Your body says, oh, we're valuable. Oh, yeah, okay, we're valuable. But if you tell yourself every day you're a loser, you can't do anything right, and you're ugly, then you're going to believe that, right? And so then your emotion catches up and it changes and it helps relieve some of the sadness.
So thank you so much for that wonderful explanation. And already so many gems here. I cannot wait for my clients to start utilizing these. I mean, the way we talk to ourselves, the way that we interact with others, tapping into our spirituality, really getting into what we believe and who we are, and reminding ourselves that we are not what this other person through this relationship has made us believe, and we can overcome that by finding ourselves. It's amazing. And so now I want to share with you some common scenarios and situations that the women I work with and friends even, and through my own life, but in particular clients now, the types of situations they're in. And if you'd like to offer any type of overarching advice for them based on your experience and expertise, I think we love to hear that. So typically the cases I work on, they're in victim rights. They are criminal victim rights for people who are victims of crimes. And unfortunately, we live in a world where most crimes are committed by and against family and friends, intimate partners, and women and children are disproportionately the victims of that. And so my clients are women, professional women mostly, and they have children, and they are escaping either physically abusive situations, or they're trying to help their children escape from physically or sexually abusive custody of their former spouse, or they've just dealt with a narcissist. I've had other experts to come in and talk about that a bit, and you're welcome to mention some of those experiences that they will be going through and how to recover. But that's what they're going through. They've typically already left the situation and trying to rebuild and make sense of what just happened to them while navigating, a family court system or a criminal court system that's really not built to understand these dynamics. And so, if you had a client like that, what's some overarching advice that you'd give them based on what you've seen and how they can rebuild?
Great question. And what we've seen is that this betrayal by that intimate partner is very, very, very difficult. Okay. Because when you're in a situation like that, that person is the person you trust the most in the world. They're in your center circle of intimacy. They're the one that's your ride or die. And you trust them with everything. And you've had their children, or they've had your children, and you share your money and everything. So when you're betrayed by that person, it affects you very deeply. And other experts have even suggested that trauma is as strong as any other PTSD type of trauma, watching somebody get killed, or feeling like your life is in danger, or feeling like you're going to lose your life. Because basically in this situation, you have lost your life, the life that you thought you were going to have, right? Or you realize that the life you thought you had is an illusion. It really wasn't that at all. And so now you're kind of just swimming in this, what is reality? And what do I really have? And now my marriage is gone. My future is gone. The one I thought I had, right? The retirement I thought we were going to have, and we were going to, live happily ever after is gone. And so that is very dysregulating, and it could be very painful and traumatic. And so in these situations, obviously, first we want those ladies to find safety, and they want them and their children to be safe. And then to start stabilizing themselves and figuring out, okay, what just happened? What was going on? And realizing that you can make it through this and you can be strong again. And sometimes it seems like it's devastating. So giving yourself some space and some grace to know that this is real. Everything you're feeling is valid and it should not be made light of. And you are worthy to be taken care of. So I see partners sometimes obsessing over the acts. And I need to know from him what happened and why did he do it and who all did he mess up with and who this and that and all these questions. And they're like a dog with a bone and they just got to know. And then I need to hear it from him and I need him to apologize and I need him to do this and that. No, you don't, because demanding that is really not helpful. And in most cases, I found that it actually makes the situation worse because maybe sometimes he has no why about it. It just was. And it could have been coming on for years, but she just didn't know it. So this partner might have left the marriage with his heart or his head years ago, but never said anything and kept up the image of the family. And so she most likely is not going to get the answer she's looking for. So the whys and the I'm sorry's, you have to let that go. So there's different ways you do that. And so as part of our structure in the 12 steps, the first step is going to be, you're powerless over your partner, his actions, his addiction, his betrayal. You are powerless. So when you realize that you are powerless, any type of attempts you make to control him, to manipulate the situation, to make him do this, make him love me, make him come back, manipulate him, if he sees how sad I am, if he sees how much he hurt me, then he will come back. I know he will. And that's normally not what happens, right? And those kind of manipulations do not get the partner to see your pain or to come back to you. So we work with the ladies to work on themselves, get them into a community, right? You need support. So find support. You're not going to heal in isolation. And it's going to be very, very lonely and painful to sit in the isolation. Now, you don't have to tell all your story to everybody and, blab to everybody if you don't want to, but find some trusted people, some good friends, some family members, a group that is with other women that have experienced what you have to find that support. And then you start doing your self-care. And self-care, basically, most of these women are like, what is self-care? I take care of everybody else. I do everything for everybody. So in that, they've lost themselves in that relationship because they probably have felt that the relationship was going wrong for a while. And you think, well, what can I do to fix this? What can I do to bring him back? What can I do to make him happy? What can I do to make this family stay together? Because they're committed to the relationship in a lot of situations. And so they stop everything for themselves and they pour everything just into the relationship. And when the relationship ends, they realize that they've lost a lot of who they are. So getting back to who they are, what do they like to do? Taking care of themselves, in a lot of different areas like physical and emotional and social and spiritual and professional and financial. Those are all areas to start putting your focus back on. At the same time, slowing down so you can grieve, because it is a grieving process. And you all have heard of the 5 stages of grief, right? So you're going to be in shock that it happened. I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe that he did this. I can't believe that this is where we are. We never thought we would be here. I didn't plan for this. And then the denial. Okay, no, this isn't really happening. I don't believe it. I'm going to have to hear it from his mouth or whatever. The denial is real. And then it can move into anger. And Dr. Weiss always does an anger exercise with partners of betrayal. And you start out by writing a letter that you do not send. You do not send a letter. Do not send the letter because it'll just cause more damage. You're writing it to your spouse, but never sending it. So you write down all the things that have hurt you and angered you in the letter over the years of marriage. Sometimes it's a page. I've had women do 14 pages of anger work and it really processed it well. And then there's an exercise to get that anger physically out of your body, because when you're angry, you can feel it, right? I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on inside your body. So you want to get this out of your body. So you could hit the bed with a pillow and start screaming. You could join a kickboxing class. You could go to a smash room. There's different things you can do to get it out. And then that really, once you do it thoroughly until you really feel just kind of a calmness come over you, that can make a big difference in how you feel physically.
What's a smash room? Can you say that really, really quick?
The smash room is like you throw plates, dinner plates at the wall, and you have a sledgehammer and you hit a whole old car that's in a smash room, and you're wearing goggles and all type of safety equipment.
It's a thing. I just don't think anyone's heard of it. It's like they're just around the city. You can look up smash rooms, everyone, and like you pay a little money, you go in and destroy stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, and you can do like hatchet or axe throwing. They have places to do that too. That's helpful. So, and as we help ladies get through the grief of it, we help them now look back at their own attachment issues from childhood, their own personality, even taking a personality test. They might forgot who they were, and just realizing, what do I like again? Maybe I want to take some classes on photography or dance or music or whatever, and to figure out who they are again. And that's extremely valuable. And once they start realizing who they are again, they can start feeling happy and feeling the joy. So after the anger comes the sadness, and the sadness is a stage that seems like it lasts forever. So I had a lot of women say, when will the sadness end? And it can come back in waves, but it does taper off. It takes a while, but you will get there, and it does happen. And then there's acceptance. And when you get to the point of acceptance, there's a certain relief and freedom that comes from that, and a second empowerment of like, okay, now I'm going to start setting my own goals. I'm going to start doing my own thing. Maybe I want to build a business. Maybe I want to move cities, different things like that. And then you move forward.
That really is a beautiful, trajectory to go through. And then as we kind of mentioned before, one part of it is, if there was never an impetus before to find ourselves and find our voice and find all the things that bring us joy, at least they can find that in the end. We're finding that in here when we go through some of the most difficult things in our lives. So it's something to look forward to as we all heal. We all have things we're healing from. And as my clients and everyone heals, it's something to look forward to. Absolutely. Is that release. I felt it. It's just like, acceptance. All right. I know we're talking a lot about like the woman side, but and I know we're not wanting people to fixate on the ex, but in your experience, in particular, understanding narcissism and abusive men, and what you can also provide background on any experience you have with that, not to go too much or fixate, like I said, but just what are they going through? I mean, do they not mourn this wonderful woman they just lost? I mean, can we get a little satisfaction? Like, did they really love them but do it wrong? Like something on the other side. Have you ever seen, is there any suffering going on over there? And if you say no, I'm going to edit it out the video.
So of course it's going to be different in every situation, right? And you can have men that are showing narcissistic tendencies, and women too. Okay. It's not just the men in the relationship. It could be flip-flopped. So they could be showing the traits, but not actually a narcissistic personality disorder. So we'll differentiate that. So when they are showing those traits, there could be a lot of things behind that. There could be an addiction behind that, because when a person is in an addiction, they may show narcissistic tendencies. So that could come out in the blaming, the shaming, the gaslighting of, blaming everything on the other person and making themselves the victim. And that shifts the whole power around, and it has the partner questioning themselves. Like, okay, I thought that I knew this. I thought that was right, but then he says it's not right. And so, well, maybe I'm a mess. Maybe I need help. Yes, you're a mess. You need counseling. You're bitter and you're angry and you're this. And she's like, well, I'm kind of angry that you keep, verbally abusing me. Well, I'm not verbally abusing you, so they argue and turn it around. So there are those type of people, but then there are also partners that they have been traumatized in their own youth, and they have been abused, and they are in a self-protection mode. So they put the shell around themselves emotionally to keep themselves from getting hurt. So it ends up keeping a romantic relationship outside of that emotional barrier, and it keeps them from giving to a partner at the same time. So they might have entered into the relationship thinking, oh, I found this great person that I'm absolutely in love with, and I want to spend my life with her and have children with her, and she's going to help me feel better, and she is finally what I needed. to be whole. And then they get married and very quickly realizes that another person cannot heal you. Your trauma, your wounds are still going to be there. So you need to work on those. And so they may be afraid of getting close to somebody because then there's that fear of being hurt, abandoned, or neglected. And that's still there maybe from their childhood. So if they are open to doing their own work, and if both people are open to doing their own work, then they can come back together. One person can't be the only one coming in. They have to both be leaning in and doing their work separately so that then they can have a healthy relationship together.
And as far as the person who does have the, what about the person who's on the extreme who does have the disorder? I mean, do they even love the person? Is there work that can be done with them? And secondarily, how do we tell the difference? Like I said, my clients have pretty much left these relationships. But say I get someone who's in the midst of it, and then what signs are we looking for to see like, oh, this is someone you can reconcile? Like, how do we know the difference?
Mm-hmm. Well, if they're willing to meet you halfway, if they're willing to lean in, if they're not willing, there's no amount of work you can do to make them do anything. So that's going to kind of have to be a test and see kind of situation. And if you're kind of wondering, are they narcissistic? Usually if you disagree with them, if you think that they're wrong about something and they react defensively or they react in an attack mode on you and turn it around so that now they're attacking you, that's a good sign of a narcissistic type of personality. So say, you kind of reject somebody you're dating, you're like, oh, I just don't think that this is a good fit for me, or maybe, I'm not ready for a relationship yet. And that person comes back with, well, let me tell you what your problem is. And you did this and you did that and you're this and that. And you're like, wait a second, I'm not any of those things. So yeah, so that's a good sign that, see you later. I don't want to continue on with that kind of relationship.
Absolutely. And so I think the lesson there is like, even if the person internally, the narcissistic or abusive person internally believes that they're loving people correctly, because maybe a narcissistic person by definition would think they're doing everything right. And even if we can see through that and say, oh, it's a traumatized person, they, either part of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. I think it is important for us to just remember, and my clients and everyone to remember, we don't have to tolerate the bad behavior. You can understand it. It can be a way to release anger towards it, perhaps kind of skip through some of those grieving phases to be able to release some blame and some sadness, and have realizations earlier. But you don't have to tolerate it just because we understand. And I just want to be really clear with why I asked that question. It wasn't to be like, well, if he really loves you, do you stay? That's not it. I just am wondering if they really did, because I think that's something that we tell people. We're like, oh, if he hits you, he didn't love you. If he's a narcissist, he doesn't love you. If he does these things to you, he doesn't love you. And what I have found actually in dealing with clients and even traversing my own past trauma and abusive relationship is that once I actually said to myself, and when I say to clients and people, he does love you, he's just doing it wrong. He does love you, he just doesn't know how. You're still free to leave, but just know that you're still lovable. It just made it easier to empower myself and empower others around me to walk away. I didn't get that knee-jerk reflexive kind of, they do love me though, and like I have to prove it to the next person, or I'm being judged by someone else. And I never wanted to have any woman feel judged in that way. So that's more where that question sort of came from. But ultimately, it doesn't matter if that person thinks they're loving you correctly. You don't like it and you can leave. I mean, does this resonate with you at all? Like, what do you think of that?
Right. And, they might not love you in the way that you want to be loved or thought you were being loved. So if they're a narcissistic personality, if they're an addictive personality, they will love you to the extent that they can love you. And that's basically what you bring to them, what they need you for. Okay. And it's not the self-sacrificing kind of love that a lot of the women that I've met in the partner situation expect and hope for. And they thought it was the, unconditional love type of love. And for him, it was like, yeah, you're a great gal and I love you. And I want to have kids. I want to have a family. I want to have a business. I want to have a house. I want to have a future. And then at that some point when his needs, wants change, he might not need her the same anymore. And then that changes. And then the partner's bewildered going on, but I thought you loved me. He's like, well, yeah, I did love you, but it's not exactly the same kind of love that you were thinking was happening in the relationship.
Okay, so we all need to ask our partner when he doesn't want us to leave, when he wants to sweep us off our feet, when he says he loves us. I think the first question is, and why? And listen for the reasons. Are we bringing out something in these men that makes them want to receive and give? Or are they liking how useful we are, how we're good at emotional labor, how we can make children and surrogates cost anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000, and so why not just tell this girl you love her and get free kids? You know what I mean? Let's all listen to their reasons why and hear and let them tell it. If they're doing acts of service and loving you the way that you want, then it's not based on just what you're giving them. And that's a huge lesson that's kind of just popping in my head as you're talking about that.
Yeah. And as the women are going into a relationship, a second relationship, a new relationship, you have to evaluate, is it because I need him? I need to be loved. I need to be told I'm special. I need to be told I'm beautiful. I need to have somebody in bed next to me. Or is it, I want him. I like him. We fit well together. We connect well. I want to be around him. And when you come from that place of secureness and you've done your work, right? You've realized where you strayed in the past or how your past has affected you, how your family of origin has affected you, how relationships, all that. When you start realizing the damage that has been happening in your life and you start fixing it, then you get to a secure place where you're not desperate for that relationship. You don't have to have somebody because you need a second income because you don't want to work, or you need somebody to, change the light bulbs in the house or whatever it is. So now you're coming from a secure place that, well, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I don't need that relationship, but I want it. And so that's a really good place to come to. And I just want to encourage, everyone that everyone has work to do. You're not one of the only ones that was damaged or hurting or, crazy, because you're not. Everybody has work that they need to do. And the healthy people are the ones that recognize it and work on it.
Yeah. Because ultimately it makes our lives better. Ultimately, it makes your own life better. It's for yourself. It's obviously for the people around you too. It's like, if I'm having these things and I'm running around hurting everybody willy-nilly because I'm not healed, yes, that's an issue. But what is the consequence to me when I'm doing that is that I don't have relationships with people that maybe I want. I'm not feeling stable in those moments when I need to. I'm not being as successful as I can at being me or accomplishing anything else in life. And so I think that makes perfect sense. Is there's a selfish reason to also just accept we all have to work on ourselves. And even when we've been victimized, there's a way to heal from that and never be a victim again, really. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
And never get into another dysfunctional relationship because, you get out of one, you're like, I never want to be hurt again. I don't want to go through this again, but I need somebody. And then somebody love bombs you and looks like the great guy and he's Prince Charming and you run off. And then the cycle happens all over again. So you need to take that time to heal yourself and to find out what's going on with you and who you are again before you get into another relationship.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Now I have learned so much and grown just so much from this conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time today. I want to know, how can we find you? You have group sessions, you're working with psychologist Doug Weiss, you have your own work that you do, but how can we find you? What's the best way to reach out and maybe have a consultation with you? How does that work?
So there's several different ways you can do that. And you can find me on Psychology Today in Colorado Springs. I'm listed there. You can find me on the ASAT website. So that's aasat.org. I'm listed under the Colorado Therapists. And you could call Heart to Heart Counseling Center in Colorado Springs and ask to be put on my calendar.
Amazing. And as far as where people are located, for legal, it's limited what I can do outside of Colorado or Missouri where I'm licensed. However, is it similar for therapists, or would you be able to do remote for people that are even in different states and all around, the country?
So yeah, absolutely. Right now for the LPCs, there is a interstate compact that is being pushed through Congress. So yay, once that happens, then we can do a lot of therapy across state lines. For now, with partner betrayal and sex addiction therapy, we can coach people through that process and through the recovery across state lines, but we can't do therapy the same. So in Colorado, I still can do virtual. So you could be in Denver or Fort Collins, and I can do a virtual session with you like this. And that is, that's great. And then everything's on a virtual platform. I can send you electronic paperwork to fill out, and we can connect that way.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to just leave us with today? Any other nuggets that pop into your mind to encourage us as we all continue on this healing journey?
Be kind to yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Treat yourself the way you would treat your best friend. Oftentimes we don't do that. We're so hard on ourselves as women. We have high standards, but you are precious and you are valuable and you are worthy of having a wonderful life and a loving relationship and complete healing. And I want you just to remember that and just move forward in taking care of yourself.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. I received that on behalf of everyone.
Excellent.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Rachel. It was great being here.
Journey through the valley of the shadow while I stand tall in the light with me. There is no sense to battle because I come in peace. I came to set myself free. And if you open your eyes, you will see my divinity.